Hello, you lovely people. This a few minutes, so anyone who wants to watch with me can. So just hang in there. I gotta play with my dog for a minute while I wait. Puppy! Leroy! Let me know when you've filed in, and we'll get started. I want to have at least a few people in so we can watch this together and discuss. I got an idea for you. I'll be back. You want some yogurt? Oh, you know what this is? This is the good stuff. Oh. Had to get my dog some yogurt. Some nice plain yogurt so he can have a popsicle on a nice hot day like this. I am going to try to be as consistent as I can from here on out. If any of you guys are watching this and you want to see more of them, please comment and like and all that good stuff. I'm going to be starting back to work. The last 2 months I've been off work, but I'm going to actually be starting back to work pretty quick. And I'm going to try to stream on Mondays and Tuesdays if I can. I've been off for the last 2 months because I was just way too burnt out on work, and now I'm actually to the point where I'm ready to like go back to work because I've rejuvenated and I refreshed, and I'm ready to get back out there. So let me sit where I'm not like completely covered up by the screen. So. Even without anyone here. So these are the live stream questions, the other half of the transmission from last week. So let's begin.
We have so many wonderful questions from.
If I remember correctly, there's actually some really great questions inside of this one. I'm gonna turn this up just a little bit, even though it's already all the way up. Okay.
From our viewers.
All right.
The first question is, how does one hone their vibration or frequency to their exact preferred reality series?
By following the formula. That's what it's designed to do.
How many times has Bashar ever said, just follow the formula? You'll naturally raise your vibration just by doing that one simple thing.
That's why we give it to you.
Or I actually asked, if you guys know who Ryo is, I actually asked him about this specific thing. He says it follow your bliss. It's just basically follow the frequency that guides you to your highest, to like So the other thing, because I've heard him say this in other transmissions. The thing is, people think it only brings the positive to you if you follow your highest vibration. It will also bring out the negatives, so you can actually, so you get a chance to work through things. And I can tell you from actually working through things like I have recently, that the moment you let go of that internal stuff, that internal strife, your vibration just naturally raises up anyways.
And this person is saying they've been having a challenging year energetically, and part of the year they felt like they were on a downward spiral, and they wanted to know how they can work with their belief system and shift into a positive reality, like with the rubber band analogy.
All that he's really saying when he says, when they're talking about the rubber band analogy, is you gotta let go of stuff. Like, you can only pull back so far with that negative belief system that you're gonna bounce out eventually. You just have to stop holding on to stuff.
And can surrendering be complementary to the formula to assist him in their preferred reality shift?
Yes, if you understand that surrendering is actually allowing the control you already have built into you to function properly.
So I'm going to say this because I've had so many lessons of this in the last 2 months-ish of having essentially vacation. I quit holding on to things, and I allowed myself to actually move forward, because I'm no longer in that state of needing to hold on to those things, because I've finally let go of that self-judgment and the emotion that was surrounding the event that made me hold on to it.
Instead of trying to take control through the personality ego. Surrendering is surrendering to the control that's already built into you. So,
and if any of you guys are going through a lesson on surrender, dear God, it is one of the hardest lessons to learn, but it's also the most important one.
yes, of course. That kind of surrender can be completely compatible with the idea of following the formula, because it goes hand in hand with not assuming or insisting on a particular outcome, but allowing what needs to happen to manifest around you, and then staying in that positive state to extract the benefit from it.
And how can we intentionally manifest what we want when we still have to interact?
It's not what you want, you manifest what you need. If what you want matches up with what you need, that's when you get it.
With what's left of previous realities before the new ones become visible.
Well, again, it's not always about what you want, which can be a negative ego thing. Not always, but it can be. It's about knowing that you will attract what you need if you allow yourself to remain in the present, because the present is where everything happens.
Like I just said.
Connecting yourself continually to the idea of the so-called past is what may prevent you from living in the present, so you can receive whatever it is that needs to manifest for you in the present.
Also, if you live in the past, you're going to become depressed. If you live in the future, you're going to become anxious. It's just the way your energy works. To be in the present, you'll be in a much more present-minded state, and you'll actually be much healthier and happier and everything else, because that's also where your gifts are.
So finding out in your belief system why you would still anchor yourself to past events, when you know that if you simply redefine yourself in the present, you've already changed your past as well, would be a good exploration and investigation for people to do, to allow themselves to understand why they may believe they have to hold on to things from the so-called past.
This person is saying that they've been following your teachings since they discovered you about 5 or 6 years ago, and yet they still find circumstances tend to dictate their state of being. Can you offer any suggestions on how to not take our cue from our circumstances?
Circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters. Your state of being determines the frequency that you're actually operating at. If the circumstances that you're actually It's kind of like the mirror effect. If you can't expect the mirror to smile first, you have to smile. You have to actually deal with the internal stuff. It went along with the last question.
All right, again, look at the language. Circumstances do not tend to alter your state of being. You choose to be altered by circumstances. You would have to ask yourself why.
What are you getting out of it? Pretty simple.
What are you getting out of choosing to go based on the idea of outside circumstances as opposed to choosing what it is you say you prefer? So again, this requires honest self-investigation and an understanding of the beliefs that are attached to your motivational.
I decided to get back on a dating app in the last few days. After about 2 or 3 days of it, I was just like, nah, I don't need to do this. I don't know about you guys, but anytime that I get on dating apps, I just feel like crap. It'd be nice to just meet someone.
Mechanism that would
Absolutely everything is completely neutral.
make it seem logical for you to choose something you say you don't prefer. Because again,
Reality is a neutral mirror. Pretty simple.
you don't choose what you don't believe serves you on some level. So you must have a belief that choosing these things based on outside circumstances somehow serves you, somehow puts you in a place that you say is safer than the alternative. So it requires honest self-investigation to understand why you are choosing to go based on the idea of outside circumstances instead of the state of being you prefer to remain in.
Nothing in physical reality is real except your experience of it. And nothing actually has meaning. It's the meaning that you give to it that determines what it means to you and your experience.
So is that partly having to do with the idea that we actually are manifesting our experience, and the idea that it's not just happening to us, like fully
Nothing is happening to you. It's happening through you.
accepting that this is a projection of consciousness, as opposed
Correct.
to I'm in this reality and these things are happening to me?
Correct. It's about taking full responsibility for what's happening. This is not a
Whatever shows up in your life is what needs to in that moment. But it's going to change.
blame. It's control. It's knowing you are in control of what's happening. Even though you may not understand it, you may be testing yourself to see if you're still reacting the same old way to the circumstances, or whether you are going to respond to it differently, which is the true measure of change. It's not about whether the outside circumstances change that prove you have changed. It's about whether you respond differently to them that is the proof of change.
So, okay. So I know I've talked about this a few times on other streams that I've done of this. Speaking of internal change and internally who you are. I've been doing this, listening to this one guy for the last month and a half, Cornelius Christopher. He's based out of New Zealand. He does coherence healing. What I have found since doing that stuff and actually healing myself and letting go of that past trauma and the guilt and the grief, what I found is the world responds to me different when I've changed. It's completely what Bashar says. Because I have changed, the world around me has actually started to transform in the most wild, wonderful ways. So if you want a testament to what he says, it's completely true. Like, you have to actually deal with your own internal stuff in order to actually be able to see a difference in your reality.
And then the outside can possibly reflect the change that is truly happening within you, because you're not basing your state of being on outside circumstances.
So it really does come down to believing that this is a projection of consciousness that's coming through.
Not believing, knowing this is a projection of consciousness, all of it. Also, you choose your reality, you choose your experiences.
Through you, and understanding how to relate to the projection that you're experiencing.
More than believing, it's knowing that it is.
Bingo.
And that's what really makes your frequency go up, is when you shift from believing to knowing.
Yes.
And also just really not hanging on to those negative beliefs that you've held on to for like 30, 40 years. I mean, really, you have to deal with those. There's no question. Or like, I've let go of a lot of that grief and self-judgment that I've had for many, many years in the last month or so. And I can tell you, the moment I actually let go of all that pain and all that self-judgment, that grief and guilt and everything, I walk around with a smile on my face most of the time, and it's really dopey, but I'm walking around in a great mood for no other reason than I'm just in a great mood.
And so what actually determines our state of being?
The combination of belief systems that you hold to be true at any given moment in your personality structure.
Is it kind of like an equation where all of the beliefs are added together and the summary is...
The beliefs that are out of alignment will always make you miserable. I know this to be true because I've lived through it, and I'm on the other side of it finally, and I'm happy. Like, I'm just happy because I'm in I don't have those things holding me back anymore.
Your frequency, yes. Simply put, but yes.
So every time you change a belief that's negative into either something neutral or positive, that's changes your equation and gives you the opportunity to be a higher frequency.
This is exactly why Bashar says follow your excitement, because it will reveal those things that are out of alignment with who you are. It's why you have to listen to those things. If you run away from it, because I've been a teacher in many lifetimes. That's kind of like one of those archetypes I like doing. And I had someone years ago tell me there was always something wrong with a lot of my students, the people that I teach. The one thing that I figured out finally, that the connective thread of all those experiences is a lot of my students think they're not good enough, and they tend to hold on to the negative beliefs, and they think they have to rush ahead. And someone that I'm mentoring right now, and I said to this the other night, is there is no such thing as a shortcut. You have to go through the process. You can't rush ahead. You can't force these things to happen. The process is different for everyone, but you have to go through the process. That's the important part.
Correct.
Okay. And what would a change in a belief system have to come from the motivational mechanism itself, or do these ideas operate on different levels?
The motivational mechanism is always involved. Now, as we have said, the unconscious mind is a repository of potential beliefs that represent the theme that you chose to explore. The subconscious mind is the gateway or valve that allows certain kinds of beliefs that fit your theme to come through to the conscious mind when you are ready for them.
And once you let go of the negative beliefs that you're in resistance and insistence that you have to believe, your life gets better. Like, I can't say this enough, because if you allow the process to work, usually it will.
But the conscious mind always functions off the motivational mechanism because, again, it's a world of physical reality, it's a world of action, and the beliefs have to motivate you to take an action or create a state of being that is commensurate with the belief, so you have something to work with.
In the chat, please let me know what motivates you. A lot of time for most people, it's fear. Fear of the unknown, fear that you might fail. But you can also let positive things motivate you.
Whether it's positive or negative.
And does the idea of free will have to do with our capacity to change what beliefs we put into the motivational mechanism?
Yes and no. Physical reality is a mix of destiny and free will. Destiny is the theme that you chose to play out. You're going to go down that theme that lifetime no matter what. Free will is how you experience it. So you can choose to pull in it. You can bring new beliefs in that work with you, but you can also bring new beliefs in you that are negative.
You always have the same capacity, but again, it depends on whether or not you believe that you do. You always have the free will to change your belief system. But if you have a belief that says you don't, you're using your free will to deny yourself the accessibility to your free will in a positive state. You're simply using your free will in a negative state.
Your choice. Pretty simple.
And what is more powerful, belief systems or feelings and emotions when it comes to manifestation?
Acceptable person. What drives you the most? Like what would you say is the biggest fear or the biggest guilt? Because guilt, just remember, is self-judgment that you've held on to that says you have to be a certain way. You don't have to do anything.
They work hand in hand. First you have the belief, then the belief uses emotions and thoughts and behaviors to reinforce itself and make itself seem real. Because again, remember, physical reality is a projection of consciousness. Classically said, it's an illusion. So the belief can't just be on its own. It has to generate the vibrational energy frequencies that you translate as feelings to make it feel that it's true, and the thought patterns to make you think that it's true, and the behavior modalities to allow you to behave as if it's true, so that you get the reflection, which then can reinforce it.
I will just say this much. No negative belief is empirically true. Anything that causes you pain or suffering usually is a negative belief, and you have to deal with it. And if you really look at it, and I can tell you this because I've done it, if you really look at it, usually it's not. There's a thing in there that's like, that makes no sense. And that's the end of the process, really. But
and it completes the cycle. But it always starts with the belief. Without the emotional, shall we say, reinforcement, it wouldn't feel real. So beliefs use emotions, thoughts, and behaviors to make themselves seem solid, seem factual, seem real, so that you can actually participate.
Acceptable. I will say this because I've heard Bashar say this a million times. No one's bringing anyone down. You're bringing yourself down, and the people that in your reality are just choosing to reflect those things. You can let go of that negative belief that says you're unworthy or you're not worth being around. It's your choice. I'm just reminding you of something you already know. That's all.
Participate in what you call physical reality.
Also, stop judging yourself. Everyone's judging themselves. Because I dance a lot, and something a lot of new dancers can't get into their head is they think everyone's watching them. Generally speaking, no one's watching you. When you're on the dance floor, you're out in the world. You are watching you. It's your choice. I look stupid, but I don't care. Also, when I get out there.
Otherwise, you would just sit there.
And how do we tell the difference between fear-based beliefs and logical planning ahead?
Well, if you plan something generally, but you are willing to allow for that to change, and you're not afraid for it to change, then you understand you're not operating out of fear-based beliefs. So you can plan, but always allow in the plan for things to change up.
Allow for wiggle room. Get the rough outline, but know that things will change. Pretty simple.
Up a little bit for there to be spontaneity and surprises, and go with the flow. Course correct as you go. You can have a general plan as an outline, but don't assume that it has to meet every single one of the markers that you originally designed in the plan. Allow there to be some flexibility. If you're not afraid to do that, then you're not operating out of a fear-based belief.
And along those lines.
So this goes back to the whole idea that things have to work out a particular way. It's the insistence that when you get out there that everyone's looking at you. I mean, honestly, who is really looking at anyone? Unless you're trying to shame people or you're trying to use whatever you have inside you to actually hurt someone else, because you're going to project onto other people how you feel about yourself. Look at those judgments of other people, because that will usually determine and tell you what you think of yourself.
If there's a lot of activity where people are scamming other people around money, let's say, soliciting money from them in one way or another, does that mean that when you're approached by anyone that is asking you for money, that you have an immediate belief that this could potentially be a scammer, or do you approach it some other way that would be of a higher frequency?
Well, again, you can recognize from a high frequency that someone may be perpetrating a scam. It doesn't mean you have to emotionally react to it.
That's insistence, remember. Like, you. Hold on, let me reread your question. That's what confuses me sometimes. What motivates me is more often than not something that I tie some expectation to, i.e., I'm going to work out because somehow I expect results at some point. That's realistically the point. Is you're not ever going to get the results automatically, generally speaking. The results, the experience down the road will happen, but generally speaking, physical reality, like we all are right now, it's not just instant. Because when you're in spirit, everything's pretty much just instant. There's some stuff in there that like take a little bit of lag, but generally speaking, here in physical reality, everything is. There's a time-space lag to determine whether you really want that thing or not. That's actually why it's there.
But you can recognize it for what it is.
Self-conscious also, and I will say this in the most loving way I can, is being self-conscious of yourself and worrying about what other people think of you and how you look to others. It's self-judgment. I mean, really, it's completely self-judgment. Oh, do I look stupid? Or, oh, am I going to fuck something up by action? Or I shouldn't say that. But, am I going to mess up my world by believing this thing or doing this thing? It's self-judgment. And usually it's a script in the back of your head that you've been listening to for years and years that says, I'm not worthy. And as we all know, Bashar said this in many transmissions, and I've heard him say this a million times. Believing you're not worthy and that you're worthless is arrogant. It's saying, out of everyone in creation, I alone am not worthy. If you weren't worthy, you wouldn't exist. If you weren't meant to be here right now, you wouldn't be here. Nothing happens on accident. You are here because you're worthy and you deserve it. You deserve to be physical right now because there are more. Also, keep this in mind. There are more spirits trying to come to Earth right now than there are physical bodies for them to come and experience Earth as it is at the moment, as it goes through this big shift that we're going through. So you won the lottery, realistically speaking. And we're here at a time of transformation, so you're transforming the belief of I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy. That's one of the things that we're all transforming right now.
If you're sensitive enough to do so. Or you can certainly take the time to explore.
And he just said it. Explore. If you go back in your mind, because I would love to do this with some people, go back in your mind and look at the times, like go to your earliest memory of the feeling of I'm not good enough. And where does that come? Where do you feel that in your body? I mean, really take a moment, just take a few breaths, like 3 or 4 breaths. It's nothing complicated. And just allow yourself to kind of sink into your body and see where you're holding on to that. And then let it happen where you just let it go. Usually if you're having digestive problems, it's that feeling that you're holding it right there in your solar plexus chakra. It's that self-judgment that you're holding on to because it says I'm not worthy.
Whether it is or not, if you feel you have sufficient powers of discernment to be able to tell from their responses to your questions what it is they are being honest or dishonest about. So it might be an opportunity to allow yourself to hone your discernment capabilities, but you don't have to react to it emotionally, to simply have the neutral observation that it could potentially be one way or the other. You can recognize that that's a potential feature on Earth that many people may
It's not this or that. It's this and that, and then eventually this is that. Ooh, we should do that. We should watch that transmission because I think that is a great one for most people to watch.
Choose to scam others, but you can sit in a neutral space and determine whether or not that is true on a case-by-case basis, if you wish.
Okay, thank you. In the past year after contracting COVID, this individual suffered mentally with anxiety and panic attacks. And they wanted to know how they could deal with that.
That doesn't necessarily mean you're not worthy. So I'll say this much and I've gone through this whole experience myself, but like I went through my pre-birth planning session for how I set up this lifetime. I picked my family, I picked my parents, I picked my siblings, I picked everyone. I picked my best friends. What I have learned from those experiences, because you really got to go back to what are you learning from the experience? If it's the one thing I want anyone who watches these to get to understand is anytime you have that self-judgment about your past or where you come from, ask yourself, what am I learning from this experience? I think that's one of the most important things to understand when it comes to just about anything, is what am I learning from this experience? And what has it taught you to be and who you are? Like, how has that helped you shape how you view the world? Because from a higher level, you saw that as something worthwhile and that would help you expand as a soul.
Anxiety and still be available for open contact, and whether or not the anxiety in that sense blocks them from having open contact.
Anxiety is projecting into the future a past experience. You're worried that something might happen. It's probably not going to happen.
The anxiety would perhaps block or slow down the potential for open contact, but they simply need to understand by examining their belief systems what they're anxious about. The question is being asked in too vague a way for us to pinpoint what the specific reason is that they choose to experience.
Hold on one sec. Let me read the question real quick. Remember. So the line is very, very thin. So as I went through in my pre-birth planning session lately, or in the last few weeks, what I found out, I've had a lot of lifetimes where I've been very, very wealthy, and then I've been very, very poor. I chose for this lifetime to have both experiences where I do really well for myself, and then I have extreme poverty. I'm approaching the point in my life where I no longer have those experiences as much. And what I decided to do for this lifetime was to have ups and downs so I can because in the other lifetimes where I had the extreme, I just did not understand either side of the experience. So in this lifetime, and this goes back to the really thin experience, I wanted to have both perspectives so I could actually move forward. You have to have we live in a world of polarities, in the dualistic way of like perceiving the world. It's not this or that. Both experiences will teach you something. You just have to actually really sit down and use your discernment to determine what you're learning and what you want to get out of it.
Anxiety. There's got to be a belief or a fear behind what they are afraid of so that they can understand where the anxiety is coming.
So, and I want you guys to do this anyone who watches this in the future is, what are you afraid might happen? In most situations where anxiety is popping up, ask yourself, what am I afraid might happen in the future after I have this experience? Your experience is neutral. It depends on how you look at it, the way you tint it, the way you color it, which will determine the result you'll get out of it. I understood.
That would be the first step. Why are they anxious? What are they anxious about? Then perhaps they can move on from there to determine how they can let go of it by understanding that there's no reason to be anxious about whatever it is they're anxious about.
Nope.
And therefore they can raise their vibration and make themselves potentially more capable of having contact.
And also, I will say this much, as someone who has finally let go of a lot of stuff, that fear, that guilt that I was holding on to, that self-judgment, the moment I let that go, it was like a ton of bricks just got let off my shoulders. Like, the fear that I used to project out into the world is just gone. I'm not holding on to it more, and I don't feel the need to hold on to it or recreate it.
So is there a relationship between contracting some kind of virus and then changes that occur within the person that
Yes.
then would be, say, anxiety? How does a virus change the way you experience reality? Maybe that's better.
What have you learned
Well,
from the
it doesn't.
experience?
You change the way you experience reality based on your belief system relationship to the idea of the virus.
Right?
The virus is simply an opportunity to examine how you will respond to its existence.
Say the unnamed virus that we had for the last 3 years, and it's still going. Usually when you have a problem with your lungs and an inability to breathe, that's a opportunity to look at how you express yourself to the world. Like, a lot of people have been choking on their words, on the way they connect to the world. So if you had a problem with your lungs, usually it's a problem with expression and also not being able to speak from the heart.
And that's why, like, some people will have dreams about it if they've got it, and they'll have a positive interaction with the virus.
And this is generally why just about every time I have like an illness, I usually know, to me, that I need to slow down, I need to take a break. But I also, what kind of illness will tell me what I'm holding back on or what I'm stopping myself from experiencing. I look at everything, and I mean everything in my life, as just a learning experience. There's no negative or positive.
Whereas other people experience it as killing them.
Yeah. Everything has a level of consciousness that can be communicated with. If you are open to that, you will...
Daryl's becoming his version of Bashar. I love the guy. He's and he's said this many times. He is starting to express himself to look like Bashar. That's where the bald comes in.
will receive whatever information is necessary for you to utilize and
Thank
apply to the situations of your belief system so that you can understand how to create the relationship you really prefer with any form of life.
Can you share with us your definition and understanding of the word grace and state of grace?
Yes. To put it in the simplest possible terms, it's a state of innocence, a state of purity, a state of allowance and acceptance, like a child.
Grace comes in many different forms. It's not just this. Grace, there's grace in the way you act towards other people, but there's also grace in humility, as well as the grace that comes from an understanding where you're able to just be present. That's also another state of grace.
In a sense, that hasn't yet unlearned how to be its natural self. State of grace is the innocence of the natural self, the acceptance of unconditional love, and the acceptance of self within all that is as an aspect of all that is.
I will say this much. I have fully accepted who I am at this point. Not that more things won't come back up, but for who I am right now, I completely accept and love who I have become. And I'm in a fantastic place in life, and I'm looking forward to what comes next.
So, but again, simply, it could be called a state of innocence.
And you see that innocence, of course, in babies and young children.
Yes.
And then it seems that individuals change at different stages of life and become more and more, quote
Yes.
unquote, realistic or
Well, again,
less naive.
it's about the idea of finally getting to
A lot of people buy into the idea of what the world tells them they need to be.
the point where you are going to start experiencing the theme you chose to explore. When you say realistic, it simply means, all right, you have accepted that you have this theme to explore, and the experience of physical reality will help you do that, and you accept that and you move forward.
So why does, in many species, you see this sort of loss of sweetness, I guess, the survival?
You don't get out of being physical without scars usually, and those scars are there to teach you something.
Mechanism becomes much more
Absolutely acceptable, person. Don't be a belief thief. It's rude.
dominant. Is that part of what you're explaining to us?
On that level, yes. You start to accept that you have a role in physical reality based on the collective consciousness and what it needs.
So this is also where a lot of light workers and a lot of people that come into the realm that we all are, they're like, they feel like they made a mistake by being here. No, you're here on purpose. Like, no one is here on accident. You can take it or leave it, but we're all here on purpose. We're all here to grow, to change, to become more than just what we were before. Because I can guarantee you we all will get out of this life. Because at this time period, being on Earth at this time, you're going to get about 100 to 1,000 years worth of soul growth that you would not have gotten otherwise. And you got to remember, this is a master class here on Earth.
To experience, and you start playing that role.
So was Earth always like a predatory planet? And can you help us understand about our relationship to having an environment that is essentially...
You got to keep in mind, I have a Sasani counterpart, so we're all connected to the same. And also, a lot of people who are drawn to the Bashar stuff, as well as here with me, we all are Sasani that are actually incarnated on the planet together right now. So we all... You say I look like that, but we're all part of the same oversoul.
predatory?
It was not always such, but the idea again is that the Earth is what you might call a tough school. It is a school of cycles. It is a school of positive and negative and polarities and experience of such. So it has fluctuated back and forth many times in different ways. But the idea, as we have said, is that the primary environment of your planet as you understand it in nature is predatory, mostly because you are still exploring the idea of predation.
That is just a belief. You're not in people's way. You're not unworthy. That is usually something that gets thrown at people, whether it's men or women, because I know that I had that belief for so long from my mom. That I wasn't worthy, that I get in the way. I'm a specialist and people pay to come see me. There is no way I could be in the way, and there's no way that you can be in the way. You're here on purpose. You're in no one's way.
Remember that as you change yourself in the present, you change.
And also, just keep in mind, any of these negative beliefs are just beliefs, and all beliefs can be changed, whether they're positive or negative. If they're shown to be not true, you don't have to hold on to them. And remember, it's true for you. It's not necessarily empirically true.
Your past. So the past you think was always there wasn't always there.
Nope.
It seems like the dinosaurs were extremely...
I have seen many different versions of the past or the future. Nothing's empirically true, and no version of the past is completely true.
predatory.
That's the past you believe in right now.
Can you explain that further? I mean, like, it is pretty amazing that...
And that's why I have a mom that I have, because it helps me relate to the people that have gone through a lot of, like, I can tell you, speaking of the past and what they're talking about, I don't like her, and I don't generally like to be around her or have like a relationship with her. The mom I have, the mom I chose for myself, if I hadn't gone through the experience with her and had her there to show me who I wasn't, I wouldn't be able to sit here today knowing that I've worked through a lot of those issues that she gave me and I accepted and I believed to be true for a long time. I can understand people better now because I had her in my life. Just because she's my mom doesn't mean I need to have her in my life. Like, there is such a thing as healthy boundaries. That also, and I will say this for anyone that's listening, the moment I really started accepting myself and let go of a lot of those really negative beliefs about myself and the way I view the world, I was much more willing to actually hold fast to my boundaries and just not just let people run over me.
That we have these dinosaurs in our history of our planet. That is so extraordinary.
In the history that you're creating from your present.
So this change in...
No, I'm just doing this for fun. I really just like watching Bashar stuff, and I know, because I've experienced this, when you operate in this way, it can get kind of lonely not having other people that you can share this understanding with or share the ability to talk about this stuff. Like, we all... and I thank you all for being here. People will look at you weird when you talk about this stuff because that's not the way normal humans talk. We're not here for the world that we were born on. We're here to help create the world that will exist for our descendants and also the people that will live on this planet.
Our history. What level of vibration would our civilization need to be at to have a completely different version of Earth that didn't have dinosaurs?
Or had different kinds of animals that weren't necessarily exhibiting or reflecting the idea of predation in the way that you experience.
I talked to Ryo, if you guys know who Ryo, I asked him this question. This is my favorite question I ever got to ask him. What would the Earth be? What would have happened on Earth had the dinosaurs never gone extinct? They would have all turned into birds pretty much. Most of them anyways.
It's a day would be above 200,000 cycles per second in your overall frequency.
And what percentage of our planet population is
acceptable? You don't have to tolerate yourself. Love yourself. Your mom was coming from a place. Know that, I will say this about your mom. Know that she was working with the tools that she had, but know that you are gaining new tools. You don't have to just tolerate yourself. Because if you think people are just tolerating you're just tolerating yourself. You're just projecting onto other people how you feel. Accept yourself, and a lot of people will just accept you for who you are. I know I'm saying this from the other side of things, but this is going to be this is an important part of also being able to integrate with your higher mind, is you have to accept and also allow yourself to be present in your relationships. When you also accept yourself, you're more fully able to be present in your relationships, as you'll show up more authentically with the people that are in your life, with who you are, because you'll be who you actually are, not who you think you won't be who you think they want you to be.
at that frequency level presently, would you say?
Less than 2%.
And on balance, then, the population is functioning at what?
You want an average for the entire collective of your planet?
Yes.
Somewhere around 60 to 70,000 cycles per second.
Okay, and so will contact be limited to people who are functioning over 200,000 cycles per second, or just in the initial stages, those individuals would perhaps have contact first?
It might be that they will experience certain kinds of contact before others, but that can help others raise their vibration.
We're here to be models for other people. I'm just here to share. I'm not here to be anyone's master. Or like, I do like mentoring people. That is fun. I'm just here to share information that I know and information that I have.
Knowing that that's going on as well. It doesn't have to be exactly 200,000 for there to be some form of open contact. And again, remember, it depends on what you're having contact with. But the idea is
the lower your vibration, the much more likely that you're going to meet negative entities or negative extraterrestrials that will. So the higher your vibration is, the more likely you will actually come in contact with people like the Sasani or the Palladians or any number of other ETs that are out there.
Can start somewhere around 150 to 160,000 cycles per second, minimally, slowly, and it can build. What we are talking about is that
well, authentic person is just showing up to be the person that you decided you wanted to be in this lifetime. It's being authentically yourself and having that really high frequency. You will naturally attract the people that match that vibration or attract and resonate with what you have to put out there into the world. It's sort of like the people who are watching this right now. You guys resonate with the message that I'm actually putting out there.
Above 200,000 cycles per second, there would be something considered to be normal, constant, open contact.
And so for an individual to have contact with you, what kind of frequency level would they need to have in order to have a good experience?
At this particular point, again, definitely above 200,000 cycles per second, probably closer to 215,000.
And I'm going to say this because I actually have pretty good open contact with my Sasani counterpart right now. His name, the vibrational name he gave me was Etham, not Ethereum, Etham. I don't completely know what it means yet, but I'll have more conversations with him to find out. But it is intense. It is really freaking intense.
Cycles. At this point.
And would one of the key things of individuals functioning in that level is that they are genuinely able to stay in a positive state no matter what they encounter?
Yes, because choosing anything else simply doesn't make sense to a being operating on that level.
Yes. So, don't get me wrong, I still have some down days, but like really letting go of stuff, the negative stuff that I was holding on to, I don't really have, like, even if I go down, it's just going back down to where it kind of was. But like for the most part, since I have been able, in the last month or so, since I've been able to let go of that self-judgment and those negative beliefs, I'm up more and I'm in that positive state. And now that I'm operating from this place, I more see the positive as just a choice, or the negative just as a choice, but I don't have to stay down in the negative if I don't want to. It's all a choice, and it's fantastic.
And their consciousness would be much more clear in terms of all of their, or most of their beliefs, or important beliefs.
Let me put it to you in an extremely overly simplistic kind of way. Would you be willing right now to punch yourself in the face as hard as you can?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
No, God, no.
Well, it would be that kind of an obvious choice to those operating above 200,000.
I don't know where I'm operating frequency-wise, and I don't really care, but I do know that I do see most of the negative as just a choice at this point.
1,000 cycles per second that they simply wouldn't choose.
And I am operating from a place where I actually love who I am these days. Not in an arrogant way, but I just love who I am and what I have to bring to everyone.
Something that doesn't make sense for them that they don't prefer. It's simply not on the list of choices. Yes, they know it's always a possibility, but the probability is so low that they simply would not choose it in a practical day-to-day sense.
No!
Just like you would not choose
No.
to punch yourself in the face.
So if you guys are operating, or if you're operating from that negative belief place, um, I would love for you guys just to use this analogy that he just said. Do you want to punch yourself in the face? Because that's generally what most people are actually doing.
So part of our challenge is to let go of the ideas of self-recrimination and guilt, I suppose.
Yes.
The ideas of what it truly means to be spiritual.
To be a spirit.
Nothing is not spiritual. Everything is within spirit. Your body, your mind, your world is everything is within your mind. There's nothing not spiritual.
To be a spirit, not spiritual. To be a spirit in physical terms.
And what kinds of emotions would that eliminate?
You would no longer choose to feel the idea of fear or sadness in that sense, or anger or hate. Those kinds of things simply wouldn't make sense to a being operating on that level. Again, in much the same way that you have chosen not to punch yourself in the face. It would be that visceral of a choice. It would not feel correct. It would feel damaging as physically punching yourself.
Absolutely, 100%. Like the last month or so, since I've been more operating at a higher frequency, I more see everything as just more of a choice, and I don't really feel like hitting myself in the face anymore. That's not fun.
To choose the idea of hate and sorrow and sadness and fear, so on and so forth.
And on this level, we are actually able to tolerate huge amounts of dissonance. And
It's not about tolerating anything. It's just knowing and seeing things as an option.
seeing things on television that are violent or
Hey, Doug,
unpleasant, and not feel what we would feel if we were above 200,000.
It's not so much about tolerating anything. It's more about seeing everything as a choice. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Cycles per second, when we would immediately disconnect from that kind of input, I suppose.
You would either disconnect from the input, or you would know how to use it to positive effect.
So that's the other piece. If you are going to see it, then you know how to use it to get a positive effect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
So what about the idea that of false accusation? You know how you were saying that if someone judges you, then, you know, if you didn't believe it was true on some level, you wouldn't react to it.
They're resonating with the guilt that you've chosen to accept. It's discernment.
But
Yes, if you are doing it out of the idea of teaching lessons to other people about those things and how to be more discerning about what is and is not true, then you can remain relatively neutral, knowing that you have made a choice to attract such a thing into your life as a lesson for others to learn.
I try to use so my dad, growing up, he still is, but he got diagnosed as a schizophrenic, and it hurt me for the longest freaking time. I let it bother me, and it drove me crazy, and I was afraid that I was going to go down that same route. It wasn't until I went to New Orleans like 8 years ago and spent a summer down there that I was able to actually help someone who is very much schizophrenic to be able to get off the street and actually go back to his family and start taking his medications so he can actually function. I use the experience of my dad to help someone, and I still try to do that to this day. Anytime I see someone functioning from that state of being, I always try to use anything in my life as a way of helping others.
wow. Wow. And if you ask for help, will you always receive guidance, or are there circumstances where help won't be given?
Help will always be given. It's just usually going to come not in a form that you expect.
And what would those circumstances be?
There are no such circumstances. Help is always given, but as we have said, you have to learn to pay attention to it and not insist that it must come in a certain form, because it may be being given to you, but you may be insisting that it should come some other way, and therefore not recognizing the help that you're actually getting.
Drop the insistence and learn to listen. I mean, and I'll say this much, and you guys can quote me on this: the world talks. I mean, absolutely, the world, everything around you talks if you know how to listen.
So it's never that you are not given help. You are being given all the help and assistance you can possibly be given all the time. It's just that you haven't necessarily been taught to pay attention to that because of the belief systems within you.
I think there's some stories about those ideas of God sending help and the individual not recognizing that
Correct.
it's coming.
The person prays to God, please help me get off this. They're in a flood, and they pray to God and say, hey, there's a, please God, help me get off this roof. And then this guy, someone flies by in a helicopter and says, do you need help off the roof? And he said, no, I'm waiting for God to show up, and he's going to send help, and he's going to get me off this roof. Well, God sent it in the form of the guy that was there with the helicopter. You just have to learn to pay attention and know that it's going to come in the form, not how you expect it to, but in the form that's most helpful for everyone.
From God, and thinking it has to look a certain way for it
Yes.
to be coming
Yeah.
from.
Drop the insistence.
Yeah.
So help is never denied, ever.
Nope.
And
Unless you absolutely have to go through an experience, then after you go through the experience, because I know that I was homeless on the streets of New Orleans 8 years ago when I met that guy. I prayed for help so many times, and then it ended up coming in the forms that I wasn't expecting. But going through that experience helped me turn my whole life around.
let's see. If our soul group agrees, can we incarnate as another ET race on another planet or a ship?
Yes,
Sure, why not?
So is there
we do it all the time. You have counterparts on many different planets, many different worlds, many different realities. You don't just have to be human.
such a thing as our soul group? What is our soul group?
Your soul family,
Yep.
or those that you deem are exploring a certain theme together.
Like all of you in the chat, we are all family.
You can decide to do that
We are all Esasani. We are all human. We are all family.
as a group.
Does that mean that with each life that you experience yourself as, you have a different soul family?
Could be so. Just depends on the themes you're exploring. Now, you might generally keep a lot of them because souls are very flexible and willing to explore a lot of different things. So, euphemistically, it might be the same soul family.
ZZZ. Z. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is unconditionally loving. It's so unconditionally loving that it would support you in the belief that you are not like that. That God doesn't exist. God. I mean, really, what God is, it's all that is. It's everything in creation. It's all levels of reality. Without all of us being here in every piece, it wouldn't be all that is. We all make up God from different points of view. We are all aspects of God. My mom, this was years ago. I'd say this is like a good 15 years ago. My mom asked me when she thought that I was trying to start some cult, which seems like way too much work. She goes, "Do you think you're God?" And my response to her is, "I'm no more God than you are. I'm just a person. I've worked through a lot of things, but I am still just a person. I am no more God than anyone here. I'm no more special than anyone here. I like sharing information. And I just want to help people live a better life."
Who are willing to explore different themes together. Just like you decide as a group of friends or family to go on vacation one time to this place and the next to another place. You can still be the so-called same soul family, but you can be agreeing to have different experiences together.
And that's what we're all doing right now.
So you've talked a lot about how it's important to take action in order to ground the energy of your passion.
Action is the language of physical reality. It tells the universe that you have changed. Your actions will determine what results you get as well as what you get next.
And also to respond properly to the higher mind that sent you the passion to begin with.
So in the case of someone like Buddha, where there was the idea of travels and many journeys.
I might. Right now, I have some stuff to work out, and I got to get my work stuff in order so I can re-up my license for what I do for a living, and also so I can take care of things if it's relevant for me to be there. That sounds like fun. I've seen Bashar once in person like 8 years ago. It was really interesting. There was like this stream of energy that was projecting off of him and going directly towards the camera.
Within. How do the journeys within fit into what you're describing because of, the insights that people get and all of that kind of stuff?
No matter how many journeys you may take within, remember that the Buddha also expressed the spiritual nature of chopping wood and carrying water, which are physical action.
Everything is inherently spiritual. Every action, every person you talk to, there are spiritual actions. Also, if you I wouldn't say purposely go in to scare people off, but if you express yourself and people move away from you, and especially if you're expressing a lot of what Bashar talks about, those people that move away from you, they're usually scared of what you're saying because of a belief that says what you're saying is not correct. It's not for you to judge, and you don't know anyone else's experience.
In other words, don't necessarily segregate the idea of your actions in physical reality as being any less spiritual than the inner journeys you may take.
Thank you.
It's always an opportunity to have an outward expression and an outward example of the inner journeys you may take so that others may see through your example in the actions that you take the beauty and information you have discovered from your journeys within.
And that's what I'm doing right now.
Because you can be inspiring to others with your behavior outwardly, your actions outwardly.
We're all
based on
family.
the journeys you have discovered within.
So it's actually not this or that, it's this and that.
And this is that.
Exactly so.
This is that.
Okay. And then as far as shifting to different realities,
which you are doing all the time.
It's automatic.
right, what does the mechanism of that feel and look like, that shifting?
It's automatic.
You're doing it all the time. So what does it feel and look like? It looks like time. It looks like change.
Yep.
It looks like motion. It looks like space. The idea is it's so natural to you, you don't even know you're doing it.
And how many realities that you shift through is your frequency. Like how many cycles per second that you're shifting through is actually your personal frequency that you're putting out.
So the idea is it really doesn't feel anything like what you would imagine unless you decide to make a larger continuity shift and let go of some of the so-called frames in between one and another that you would normally experience.
I have done this. It is trippy as hell, and you're not ready for it when it happens, especially the first few times it does happen.
And be capable of consciously recognizing that you're shifting all the time. And then it might feel like elation, it might feel like disorientation, it might feel like a number of different things. But the idea is that you're doing it all the time. And in the natural sense of the agreement you have made to do it all the time with many others, what does it feel like? It doesn't feel like anything at all because it's natural. As I said, you only really feel the difference when you make a larger change, a larger shift that is a breaking of continuity.
So that's like teleporting almost.
Yes. It is exactly that.
So, Ethan, what he said to me when I was doing some automatic writing about at this time, it is not appropriate for me to actually channel him and vocal channel him in that way. I need to make more preparation, as well as I need to be able to it's more appropriate for me to do this, what I'm doing right now, to share information with you guys in this way. And years ago, I was really drawn to the idea of vocal channeling, but you kind of have to have someone physically talk to you in order to be able to remain in that channeling state, so you can practice it. Right now, I am nowhere near practiced enough to be able to talk like Daryl and Bashar are doing.
Because what you're doing all the time is teleporting from one reality to another. Billions of times per second. It's just that when you teleport or shift to something less expected, based on your understanding of what's expected, of your agreement to what's expected, then you notice the difference.
Can you also explain to us what it means to shift to fourth density and fifth density? Well, no, it's saying to shift to fourth density and fifth dimension.
So, I will say this much when I would talk about this stuff to people in the past that were, especially when they're not ready for it, sometimes it's there when you're there to plant a seed in someone else. It's not necessarily that you're there to give them all the information. You're there to actually plant a seed that will sprout later on. It's a lot of times when you share information with people, don't expect any sort of like, oh, this or that. What you're doing a lot of times is you're just planting a seed for other people to be able to grow a plant later on. So be honest, be who you are, and know that it's not always for right now. Because I know that the videos that I'm doing like this, they're for people down the road, and they're also there for people that are going to watch it later on. And I am perfectly fine with that.
So I'm not sure what...
All right. Fifth dimension is non-physical.
Timing is everything.
It means you're going back into spirit, so to speak, to put it linearly. Fourth density is a physical reality, just a higher vibratory one. And then if you decide to go into spirit, you've gone to not only fifth density, but the fifth dimension.
I'm going to grab my dog.
Because again, that's the border between physical and non-physical reality. So fourth density may draw upon fifth dimensional energies, but you're not actually experiencing yourself in the fifth dimension until you're in spirit.
So when you're non-physical, you can still have a linear experience, right?
Oh, he ran
You
away.
can create a linear experience. Yes, you can create that. It's just that time is more malleable and flexible, so you can create whatever you want and experience it sort of linearly, or you can instantaneously experience something, because time is not the same kind of factor in spirit that it is in physical reality. In fact, the idea of time...
Well, you may not be there to open the door. You may be there just to plant the idea, the understanding. But it's not necessarily always your job to open it. It's never your job to open up the door for someone else. You can show them the way, but it's up to them if they want to open the door. No insistence.
is one of the very definitions of physical reality that you impose upon yourself. By shifting to billions of different realities from a particular perspective, you create this side effect, this illusion of time in a linear way. But in spirit, there's no need to do that, but you can do that.
So like for an individual such as yourself that is quasi-physical,
Yes.
is there this huge demarcation?
Nope. No real electric door and no physical door. It's just, it's always, you're there to actually, you're just there to help other people. It shouldn't be about trying to force anything, your beliefs on anyone else. It's there to help. Like, if you're really there to share with other people it doesn't matter if they believe you or not. You're just there to share the information. And it may have just been at that moment you were the perfect person for them to hear that bit of information that will sprout later on.
That happens when you become fully non-physical as a spirit and experience other levels of yourself.
If that happens, that'd be fantastic. It doesn't need to. I'm perfectly happy just doing what I do now.
Going forward, because you can still have a linear progression of 5th and 6th and 7th.
Also, my Sasani counterpart, he is and I am too, in a way, but I am an explorer of realities. That's mainly my job, is just to explore and share what I know.
Yes, but again, it's experienced very differently in the spirit world. But yes, the demarcation can be quite different, as
absolutely.
most people who have near-death experiences describe.
Absolutely,
Suddenly,
Sky.
you are filled with unconditional love. You understand and know what your life is all about and what you chose. You remember completely and utterly who you are in that sense.
It's a lot to look forward to.
Well, yes, but not meaning to run away from physical reality.
Right. Because we get that theme a lot too, is that the desire to get out of physical reality because it's hard to accept things that are negative, predatory environment, all of these kinds of things.
Yes, but that's
absolutely 100%. And you also when you act as an example for what's possible for other people, it's much more easy for them to accept the thing you came to actually teach them. I don't care if anyone else learns or understands what I talk about. You guys obviously do. I'm here just to share what I understand and also share what I love, because I love watching these things and I love having you guys to watch them with.
a misunderstanding. It's not about getting out of physical reality. It's about allowing you to know you are creating the experience in physical reality.
Yes.
So that you can experience your control of what you're creating while physical, knowing that physical reality is an expression of spirit. It's not about getting out of it. It's about rendering physical reality more spiritually.
That's amazing. And the training ground for that is being able to stay.
Reality, you're here by choice. And also, I know what it's like, because I really tried to do that for years, and just like I tried to avoid people as much as possible and escape from my reality. The reality I chose, mind you. The reality that you experience is just a projection of who you are. Like, I know we all have had lives on much easier planets, but we're here because this is a master class, so this is not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but you're here on purpose. You chose to be here. We all did.
In a positive state, no matter what you experience, and not letting expectation of how it's supposed to be control the.
If you're ever disappointed, you're disappointing yourself. You're taking your power away. Be in a state of acceptance of who and what you are, as well as the experiences that you have. When you redefine your experiences, you'll experience them differently.
Way that you respond to it.
Correct.
All of these kinds of things that you've expressed in the formula.
Yes, so this is a misunderstanding many people on your planet have about the idea of leaving physical reality, getting out of or overcoming physical reality. No. What you need to do is create physical reality in a more spiritual way so that there is less difference between the two.
Oh, so another story to share. I was in Australia 8 years ago, and I'd love to go back whenever I get a chance to. And I love it down there, and I really want to move down there. I was sitting in a hostel, and I was talking to this one guy that I made friends with while I was there. he had gone to this prep school that his dad sent him to, and he was worried about being a manager and being stuck doing all those things that his family's done for years and years. And what I said to him at that time, and I've seen updates from him for the last 2 years. Your life doesn't happen by accident. It happens by your choices. So having good discernment will determine the reality that you experience. You don't have to go down any one particular route. Life's a multiple choice question, and there's no, unless you do something truly negative, there are no real wrong answers. Even if it is done in a negative way, you can still get something positive out of it, depending on how you define it.
It's very powerful.
Yes.
This person was saying they were reading a book about angels, and one day rare things happened. When I opened a new chapter and read the title of that chapter, suddenly I felt a gentle breeze. A story came into my head, and I later realized that the story that came into my head was in that chapter. What happened to that person?
You opened up to a higher level of your being, a higher level
My
of
dog
your
wants me to
consciousness.
play with him.
Saw the template you had laid down for about to read that story. You, in a sense, sensed what it was about ahead of time, so to speak, by tapping into the template you had created in non-physical reality to gain a glimpse of the so-called future, or again, a parallel present. And you had assistance and a greeting from higher level beings, not only your own higher mind, but spirit guides and other beings as well, that reinforce the idea with that so-called gentle breeze that you were in the correct state of being to be able to expand your consciousness and see what you had laid out for yourself.
So I've always tried to make all my hobbies into career, which I've decided I'm no longer ever going to do that because, don't get me wrong, I like making extra cash. I think it'd be more exciting and more fulfilling just to do them for fun, like this. I find this so much fun to hang out with you guys and watch this. I don't care to, like, things will progress naturally because that's a natural thing. It's drop the insistence. I think that's, for the last year or so, that's like one of the biggest things Bashar has really been like pushing is drop the insistence.
One person wanted to know about Sasani beings aiding in human healing. Are there beings in your civilization that participate with us in that way?
Yes.
A few of them do, yes. Although, again, this is something that's done very cautiously because we are not allowed to intervene in your experiences beyond a certain point.
But they can incarnate in the societies and help spread the word.
We will not go into this more deeply.
Okay. And is it possible to circumvent the laws of physics, such as gravity?
Local conditions, other planets, they don't have the same sort of rules like we do here on Earth.
With your conscious mind and your consciousness?
No, you are not circumventing the laws of physics.
Nope.
If you allow yourself to achieve a levitation state that seems to ignore gravity. All you're doing is understanding more deeply what gravity is and taking advantage of that knowledge.
Gravity is a side effect. You can actually, if you know how to resonate correctly, which I don't yet, and I say yet because that's one of my goals in life. Like, our ancestors did it. Doesn't mean, like, right now the belief of everything is that it can't be done, but soon enough in the next few years, it'll become a thing.
It's not about overcoming the laws of physics. It's about understanding the true laws of physics more deeply than your scientists do at the moment, and then utilizing that accelerated knowledge.
And is there another trajectory?
Think of anytime someone says physics, just think of it more as local conditions, because I know for a fact on most planets, they don't just live on the surface of the planet. They live in the sky, they live under the ground, they levitate, they fly, they can travel through the ground. Hell, sometimes the ground isn't even solid, and they can just phase right through the ground and go through the core and out into space.
For Earth where we don't have contact, but it's still a positive Earth?
Absolutely. There are many versions of Earth that have nothing to do with open contact with extra.
We are on the timeline of open contact. That's why we're having these experiences right now. That's why you're starting to see more and more stories and also things talking about UFOs.
Terrestrials, and they're very positively oriented. Anything you can imagine in that sense is most likely being expressed in some version of a parallel reality. So,
and so
no,
much
not
more.
every Earth has to have open contact with extraterrestrials to be happy.
So there's Earth timelines where the Anunnaki were not involved or the hybridization agenda did not occur.
Absolutely.
And could you share anything with us about what those kinds of Earths would look like?
Well, as we have already said, the idea of the branches of hominids that were...
There is, but it's completely non-physical, and it's kind of like thinking... so we're shifting up to where we have more of an understanding of the oversoul. So when you get to the fifth level, or fifth density, it's like an oversoul where it's just more of a collective consciousness. 60 is more like an oversoul of an oversoul of an oversoul that collects from many different realities simultaneously, and also many different collective consciousnesses simultaneously.
Not genetically altered by the Anunnaki, simply continue to evolve as Sasquatch. So there are versions of Earth that are filled with Sasquatch.
Absolutely.
There are no Homo sapiens around at all.
Yes.
That's one effect in one parallel reality.
And as far as the work that's happening now with the hybrids and everything, what does the other Earths look like? Where
they're a lot greener, but there's just about anything you can think of on different versions of Earth.
we don't become involved in that.
Well, there are many, many, many versions of Earths that are not involved in the hybridization agenda, so you would have to pick and choose which way you want me to describe.
I have seen different realities. I've had visions of different realities in different places and different times on different versions of Earth, where I live right now is completely underwater. And I'm also seeing it where it's completely a desert. I've seen it where this is a mega city. I've seen it in any number of ways.
Because there are thousands upon thousands of versions of Earth that have nothing at all to do with the hybridization agenda.
Well, so fifth density is purely non-physical. It's where Bashar and all this Sasani people are actually shifting to that state. You don't truly ever die when you're in that state because you're just non-physical. You're spirit.
And they still have a positive outcome.
Yes. Just as many have negative ones. Anything you can imagine.
And so much more.
Okay. So those that are attracted to the information that you're sharing are probably part of that, and they're at some level they've chosen that part,
Yes.
that version of Earth to move
Yes.
to a positive way.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Because it's always about free will.
If that wasn't the choice, we wouldn't be here talking with you.
Right. I see.
We'd be talking to another Earth, as we are also doing.
They are talking to many different versions of Earth, as well as I know I'm talking to you guys as well on many different versions of Earth, and many different people that are also having these experiences with me in different realities and different people in the same chat.
How many Earths do you speak with?
Personally, 135. But other members of my species talk to others as well.
And more
And that's
and
only
less.
on our planet.
Yes, because one person was also asking about why there's really no other Sasani channels
There are.
that come through or that are doing like
Rayo and Shale and like a bunch of
you're
other ones.
doing too.
There have been, as you know,
And there are.
and there are, but not necessarily in the same way that what we are doing here. There are other ways in which people can bring through Sasani energy without even necessarily knowing that it is Sasani energy.
So to answer the question of the person who asked, will I plan on doing vocal channeling like Daryl? Probably not. I bring through it in different ways than what he's doing. That's all. but still the same sort of energy.
Because of their own connections to our people. They may not necessarily have a name or a label for it, but they're bringing those energies through because they have a connection to do so. And they have a counterpart in our society that is helping with that. It doesn't always come through vocally.
So the fact that as far as a vocal communication and your role as a first contact specialist, are you in that sense the designated being to communicate with the planet in a verbal sense like this?
With your version of Earth at this time, yes.
So you're kind of the more senior
Yes,
society.
he is.
If you want to look at it that way, you can, but that's not exactly accurate the way we look at ourselves. We have a purpose in focusing this version of Earth in a certain way that will help accelerate and perpetuate the idea of open contact for those that are willing to align with that particular vibration. And in that sense, we present less so that you will not necessarily be confused.
Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful.
Yes. This is the way it usually works with most civilizations.
So, Sky, so the thing with 5D, the one is the all is the one. Usually once a civilization gets to the point where it's 5D, I mean true fifth dimensionality, it's actually more of a collective consciousness. Not like the Borg or like the Greys. It's more of a true inclusive nature where we're all part of the whole. And we're all telepathic also.
At a certain point, they need to focus down to fewer and fewer representations of our energy so that they, again, don't get confused about what vibration they need to align with if they are interested and willing to align with our vibration.
Cool. How do we interpret repeating numbers like 111, 222, etc.?
It's a synchronistic marker you gave yourself.
If a person's seeing a lot of that?
Yes, well, we have answered this many times. It's the idea of demarcations or road signs that allow someone to know when they get that kind of numerical synchronicity that they are in alignment with the vibration of their higher mind, and to come from the feeling that is generated in those moments when they recognize that synchronicity. That's their true vibration. Stay in it. Stay in that magical space. Stay in that feeling and come from that feeling in following your passion in everything you do with regard to that.
And for individuals that are interested in like the hollow earth idea or inner earth,
There is no inner Earth. There is no hollow Earth. It's actually what they're coming up with, or they're coming in contact with, is interdimensional doorways to other versions of Earth or other realities. There's no inner Earth.
earth civilizations and everything. You've mentioned that these are parallel realities. This is not present in ours. What are some beneficial or meaningful ways to connect with?
It's not one-sided. There's no one-sided. It's inclusion. It's when you ascend to fifth density where it's non-physical, it's inclusion. You still retain your personality, but you know that you're just part of the whole. It's not one-sided. It's inclusive, where you can still do all those things, but you know that you're part of everything.
Those individuals, and does it have relevance, in terms of our?
Well, it can have relevance for certain individuals on your planet, but again, it just depends on their path. So again, if they follow the formula and it's relevant for them, then they will likely encounter those kinds of beings in those parallel realities that many people think is actually physically inside your hollow Earth, but isn't, because your Earth isn't hollow. But people can go through portals and think that they're inside the Earth physically, when in fact they have transitioned to a parallel reality.
Yep.
That is in its own dimension and has nothing at all to do with being physically inside your planet.
So, I have had people say this to me when I've been out walking around, because I tend to attract the kind of people that would say those things. I've had to correct these things on people. To be like, no, that's not actually what's going on. You're slipping into another reality. And I mean, if you really think about it, it makes really no sense. There are doorways everywhere. Like, you just, when you become also more discerning and you raise your vibration, your frequency, there are a lot of things that unlock for you. Being able to sense doorways like that when you're out in nature becomes a natural side effect.
Wow. So can you tell us more about some events that have a high probability of happening in 2023 relating to ET contact?
Oh, okay. So the Phoenix Lights, and many other times when we've had like events like that, and this is my thoughts on this. A lot of times when they show ships in that very overt way for people to see, what they're there for is a lot of times it's there to go, hi, we're here. What do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with the understanding? It's there to get us used to the idea that we're not alone. And as we progress over the next few years, it's going to become more and more and more up until the point where we have, like, it's the straight up open contact starts, and we start as a world, we have to come together so we can actually progress. And I am looking forward to all the major fun events that are coming. And I have seen some of them for myself, what's going to come down the line, at least for what we're on currently. There's some cool stuff coming. It's just going to take some time for it to get here. And also, there's this place out on Mount Adams, not too far from where, like, it's like a hour or so drive from where I live, where it's actually a doorway. It's like an on-ramp for UFOs up at Mount Adams, and I want to go there this summer and go camping and watch the UFOs exit and enter this doorway. It'd be kind of fun.
All right, well, the first thing we wish to say is that many people have a little bit of a misunderstanding in thinking that 2023 is the year of open contact.
It's the beginning of the window compound.
It's the beginning of the window of open contact that will take a few years. So the idea is that it will start slowly, but one of the first things you
which is what we're going through right now,
may start to notice is more reporting of UFOs, more closer sightings of UFOs, again, to gauge how used to those sightings you are getting or not.
Phoenix Lights.
So it can begin with the idea simply of more sightings, closer sightings, seeing how you react or respond to those, and then there may eventually start to be sightings of UFOs on the ground, more sightings of beings from the UFOs temporarily before they take off. Things like this, again, bit by bit, bit by bit.
So the announcement that Bashar did like a few months ago at the Conscious Life Expo, when he's talking about it by the into 2026, at the latest, no later than 2027. By that time, over the next 3 or 4 years, which we're going to be, it's like 3.5 years now, it's going to start speeding up drastically. It's just there to get us used to the idea that we're not alone.
More and more to get you used to the idea that we are here, that you're not alone. So this is a problem.
Yael are not fifth dimensional. They're fourth density beings. They're quasi-physical, kind of like the Sasani, at least the version that you see out there. But they are our descendants, and they're also the first ones that are going to actually have open contact with us because they're the most like us-ish. Not so much where they are now, because they're a lot more like the Sasani. But the Yael are going to be the first ones to actually have more straight up open contact with us because they're the closest to us genetically speaking.
Process. It's not that UFOs will be landing everywhere in 2023. We have never said that.
Nope.
It's the beginning of the window, the beginning of the process that could be a decade long in getting used to the fact that we exist, that we're here, and that you're not alone.
And as Bashar said at the last Conscious Life Expo, and he said this in a couple other transmissions, that by 2027, we will know they're here.
Is it also to the idea that if somebody was from 500 years ago and they came to our civilization and saw planes flying around in the sky and jets, they would be utterly shocked. And for us, the idea of seeing spaceships flying around would be kind of similar to that idea, yes?
Yes.
For most of you, yes. Not always, but for most of you, yes. Even though many of you think it wouldn't be a paradigm shift in your consciousness, trust us, it will be, because it's not exactly what you think it is. It's not the typical sci-fi scenario. There's other things that go along with it that are multidimensional in nature and multi-leveled in consciousness.
No, I am just a human. I have the ability. I've unlocked a lot of abilities, but I am not a precursor. Not by a long shot. Those are straight up have alien bodies that are much more genetically advanced than I am.
That sounds exciting. Want to say anything more about that?
No.
Okay. And so how is First Contact moving forward and accelerating when we have a war like what's happening in Ukraine?
We're getting that sort of energy out. That's pretty much what Ukraine's there. It's so we don't have a World War III. That's actually why we're having Ukraine. I know it sucks that all those people have died. The reason for it happening is actually to make it so we can get all that energy out in one concentrated place instead of everywhere around the world.
Right now.
Again, you're getting things out of your system. You're putting things on the table.
Oh, they are absolutely here. I personally have not come in contact with one, but I'd love to actually sit down and have a conversation with one. I know that there's ETs all over the place. Yeah.
Able to decide what kind of a reality you really prefer to experience. So first you have to see what it is that you don't prefer, so you can more clearly see what it is that you do and take action in that
Dog!
area. So again, it's no surprise that there may seem to be an increase in what you call negativity and violent action. But again,
It's a symptom of us raising our vibration. We have to get that stuff out.
it's not about that so much as what you decide to do about it.
And what we did about it is we came together as a civilization and to say, nope, we don't need to have this. Also, we're not going to have that nuke go off like he had predicted a probability of years ago. That's not in the cards for us anymore.
And will one of the markers that we're ready for open contact be that we don't care that much if it happens or not, because we're enjoying our lives so much as they are and living in a state of high passion and
One of them.
excitement?
Generally speaking, yes, because it's not about the idea of us bringing you what you prefer. It's about the idea of you choosing to live in the moment and follow your passion and create the reality you prefer as an experience, which will then make you more vibrationally compatible with having open contact with beings that are of a similar frequency. So yes, it's not about the idea of us rescuing you or saving you.
We got to save ourselves. It's our world.
It's about you bringing yourself to a safe level, a same level, a sincere, honest, understandable level of appreciation, gratitude, and living your life fully in joy that will actually do the trick and make you more accessible to those beings, such as our civilization, who then can find you more easily because you are more vibrationally compatible with us.
So I guess the idea that the more that we bring heaven to earth,
Yes.
the more a side effect will be that we have contact with higher dimensional beings and ETs.
So I've heard from other timelines where they do have interstellar travel, but they end up not, when they're coming from the negative place, a lot of times they end up not having any sort of ET contact because they didn't match the frequency of the ETs that are out there. So it's coming from a more positive place, and we won't be in such an isolated part of the universe. And actually, so something that I heard from Ryo is the embarkation point is we're actually moving through a black hole right now. Our whole solar system, our whole the soul system which we're in, is moving through a black hole right now. That's actually why we've been having that's also part of the reason why we've been having such intense experiences.
The more you create heaven on earth, the more you can interact with all the denizens of heaven.
It's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Is the moon hollow and used as
No.
a base for the
There are observation posts, but the moon is not hollow. There are hollow spots, but the moon is not hollow.
Galactic Federation to discuss Earth topics?
There are bases on your moon from
Yeah.
different ET civilizations. The moon
Yes.
is not hollow per se in the way that you think of that. But there are large...
There's natural... The moon is a natural object that's in orbit around our planet that is that's been modified. That's why it's geosynchronistically locked or tidally locked to our planet. It's because it's been modified.
caverns. There are large areas of underground bases on the moon.
Are there bases on the dark side of the moon?
The opposite side of the moon that faces you is not always dark. Yes, there are bases on that side, but it's a misunderstanding to say that it's always dark. It's only dark in the sense that you can't see it from Earth because only one side of your moon
Yes, Terra Ha.
is always facing your planet because it is in gravitational lock.
When they went to the moon, did they become aware of any of those bases?
Yeah.
They became aware of the presence of extraterrestrials on the moon, yes.
They didn't show us everything that they did when they were on the moon, basically, is what it is.
So our returning to the moon, how does
Yes.
that fit in?
It fits in wonderfully.
Wonderful synchronicity.
It's the perfect timing, huh?
Yes, it is. Now, it could have happened sooner, but again, you had some things to work through.
And that's why we didn't go back to the moon sooner than this.
So, for what it is and the process you're going through, it is perfect timing.
And the fact that we have telescopes now that are incredibly clear and able to penetrate such deep levels of space is reflective of the idea that we are getting more and more ready
Yes.
to experience what's available.
Yes, because
They're synchronistically, like, corresponding to where we are energetically. I mean, it's pretty simple if you think about it.
as we said before, it is your own telescopes and your probes that will discover the idea that life does exist elsewhere.
Ooh. So, I don't know if any of you guys have heard it, and it's on Amazon Prime. There is, so I want you to think about media as a reflection of where you are energetically. And I watched this back when I was a teenager in the late 90s, early 2000s. I saw this show called Earth Final Conflict. And the aliens in that were quasi-physical. They looked a lot like what the Sasani and the Eshikani, or not the Eshikani, but the Shayael and the Mazani, they look like, and they're quasi-physical beings, kind of like this, but they're but sprinkled throughout that entire series, it's a lot of what Bashar talks about. And it shows why they wouldn't necessarily be here, because the way we would interpret their actions also. So if you ever want to, and this is just a recommendation, check out Earth Final Conflict. It's a great series. It's kind of cheesy, but there's some great information actually sprinkled throughout the whole series.
And even if it's simple like, the idea will open you up psychologically to accept the fact that life exists elsewhere and that you're not alone. And that will make a major difference in your collective consciousness.
And back to the idea of contact, when people reach that higher state of being in excess of 200,000 cycles per second, and they're ready for open contact, how might that happen if they live in an urban environment versus being in a remote place?
There have been many contacts that have happened.
It's actually kind of easier for them to make contacts in a rural place, so it's isolated, and it gives them a better barometer than people in a city.
In urban environments. Just because they're in an urban environment doesn't mean that they can't be private.
So similar to what happened with the channel, where his family members that were present with him in the vehicle were able to see your ship, but no one else could.
Some others did, but most did not. So yes, it can happen that way. Or again, remember, beings can simply appear inside of your house or your apartment.
It's called bilocation. We're actually already doing that.
No one outside.
And actually, yogis in the Bible and also Yeshua or Jesus, they did those things. It's actually a natural part of our state to be able to do something like that.
It has to know what's going on inside.
If the gift of open contact is all of our true history, and we get to decide how we want to relate to that, then are we not currently living the result of what we call our true history?
You are currently living the result of the past you are creating now. So when we say that you're going to be given the gift of your true history, we're talking about a level of existence where you'll be creating the history that is necessary for you to receive in that version of Earth.
I'm looking forward to this device that they're going to give us, the physical object. I'm looking forward to getting like everything, like talking about the Atlanteans, the Lemurians, or the Moons, or the Anunnaki, or just like any number of bits of history that we've lost. This is something I'm looking forward to personally when it comes to First Contact.
When you mentioned before that there are other parallel Earths that you're interacting with,
Yes.
can you tell us about one of them that would be a lot different from ours?
One is primarily based on the idea of experimenting with shifting borders. In other words, on a semi-annual cycle, the idea of so-called borders is really just the notion of experimenting with different social structures for a period of time and then dissolving those borders and shifting again to different forms of experimentation.
Practicing different states of being. That's why we have different states around the world, because those are the states that we choose to be in. Because think about different countries and different places around the world. Like each place has its own particular type of energy. That's also why here in the United States, that's why it's called a state. It's a state of being that you're choosing to be in. Each state, is essentially a separate country, but all tied together in one go.
Of social structures. That is one of the versions of Earth that we are interacting with.
And as far as the idea of location of an atom,
Yeah.
this person's saying they're confused regarding the principle of location being an aspect of an object in space
It is a variable.
time.
Yeah.
Where is the demarcation of an atom's location point stored? And is it in the electron cloud, the nucleus, and also how do you keep an atom still in order to assess its location between 2 points?
We don't have to keep it still. It doesn't operate that precisely. We operate within the idea of the quantum uncertainty, and that's sufficient enough. We allow physical reality on a quantum level to exist as it does. The vibrations are so minute, they do not prevent us from simply creating a matrix of locations based on a 0 point that we start with.
So Daryl told this story years ago because he had asked Bashar how did their ships work and how do they jump from star to star. Back when the Sasani were just trying to figure out this way of transporting and teleporting to different places and jumping from star system to different realities and all that yada yada yada, they actually lost people. So this is an understanding from 10,000 years in our future, understanding wise. So they had to grow like we've had to grow,
which is a particular point on our planet. So the idea is that we simply extrapolate out of that what the likely locational variables would be from that point forward, stretching out into space-time.
Okay, and a long time ago, you gave us what are called the sacred circuits.
Yes.
And one person is asking if you could tell us exactly how the sacred circuitry affects our brain just by watching them,
It rewires it.
and
Well,
what the
again,
mechanism that's taking place.
yes, again, it is a permission slip like anything.
Yes.
And those that are willing to allow themselves to shift their neurology into ways that are more vibrationally compatible with extending their senses into other dimensions will gravitate to the sacred circuits as a representation of the kind of shifts they already wish to make. The sacred circuits simply provide an idea or a template for them to align with that would allow the circuitry in their brain to shift in the way that they say they prefer it to.
Quick question. Who would be interested in watching that one? Because it's been a few years since I've watched that specific transmission, Sacred Circuitry. But I would love to sit there and chat about that one and actually... Because it's been years since that one's been out. I would love to sit there and actually watch it with other people. Because it's kind of like coming from a different perspective. After it's been a while since you've watched the older ones. I would love to just sit there and actually kind of geek out about this stuff. Because I find it utterly fascinating personally.
So again, remember, sacred circuits don't cause anything. They are a reflection, like anything in physical reality, of a idea you already have in your consciousness, but don't necessarily know what particular permission slip to utilize in order to accomplish that. The permission slip of the sacred circuits allows for more ease in understanding, oh, these are going to allow me to
Everything is a permission slip.
change the circuitry in my brain more easily because they represent that idea.
Okay, and this person is saying that
Everything in physical reality is a permission slip. Even that we're watching this right now, this is a permission slip.
they recently discovered moldavite, and it's the only crystal that they've seen have such a dramatic effect on people, both physically and mentally. Is there anything you can tell?
Moldavite is tied to, how they describe angels in the Bible? They're actually beings from Jupiter, and it actually connects to those beings and the idea of those angels or perceived angels.
Tell us about moldavite that would help us understand that.
It strongly represents the idea of increasing possibility and probability of open contact because moldavite has come through space.
Yes.
So it carries the vibration of extraterrestrial frequencies with it. And thus, in recognizing that, those that are primarily oriented to the concept of extraterrestrial contact will feel as a permission slip an especially strong pull to that particular mineral.
You can actually use moldavite as a way of as a strong permission slip. Like if you meditate with it, there's actually an exercise that you can do with moldavite specifically that will speed up the contact, and also, just like any crystal, it's just a permission slip or just about everything else, to be able to resonate and also have more contact with non-physical beings as well as your counterparts per se. So
because it represents that idea of connection to space. All right?
Okay. And how would you recommend that we think of the Anunnaki, since there was a renegade group of them that helped to create us? And what would be an appropriate way to relate to them? Should we be grateful for them?
The way to relate to this idea is to save it for another time.
And I'm waiting for him to answer this question, and I haven't seen it yet in the last few transmissions that I've watched.
Oh, that question.
Yes, and that will be enough for today.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. We all really appreciate.
Absolutely. So I'm going to leave it here because I do not feel like doing the meditation part of things. If you guys would like to watch the rest of this without me talking over it, make sure you go to bashar.org. I am not going to... that's also part of the reason I talk, because I had someone recently ask why I do it this way. Because typically the way YouTube works is there has to be commentary. I'm not doing this to make money at it. out of these. I just want to share the information. But this is why I actually do it this way. So I can actually put it up on YouTube and keep it up there. Because if I just have it as a straight, like, put the video of him talking with April or whatever, or just condense everything down into one video, I get a copyright strike, and then I can't keep it up on my channel. So I actually have to do it this way in order to be able to, like, share it with you guys. So this is, and I'm just kind of using this as a watch party. I'm not going to try to make my living doing YouTube, but what I want to share with you guys is kind of the understanding that I have, so we can sit there and talk about it. Because I know, like, earlier in watching these, I had a lot of questions and I didn't have someone there to answer them. So I would just want to share the understanding that I've gained over the years with everyone. But that's why I do it this way versus just like putting straight videos where people can just watch them. So if you would love to support Bashar, or you'd love to see just the full video without me talking and be able to do everything in one go, please go to bashar.org. But more to come, more of these transmissions to come. But tonight I want to end it right here, and I just wanted to share with you guys at least this. This was the transmission, the very last transmission done in December, right before the end of the year of 2022. Feel free to go to Bashar, pay them, yada yada yada, but just kind of keep that in mind. That's why I actually do it this way. That's why I sit there and talk over this, so I can actually have it up on YouTube for people to watch. So I think the next one that I want to watch with you guys is the Sacred Circuitry. That's going to be in the next few days. I'm going to just go enjoy the weekend because it's going to be absolutely gorgeous around here. But so going forward, I'm going to have Mondays and Tuesdays that I'm going to be live streaming these things because I'll be working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday here in the near future. I may do live streams in the evening like this again. For now, not always, but for now, I've just been doing work stuff, so I had to so I've just kind of been holding back on doing more of these kind of streams. So I think the next, what I'd like to do, if you guys are interested, is to I want to do Sacred Surgery. I want to go back and rewatch that one with you guys, and I want to just sit there and talk about it because it's fascinating. So if you have any of the transmissions you guys would like to watch, and if I particularly have them, feel free to comment and subscribe, all that good stuff. And I would like to just invite you to, because we are a family, we're all connected, we're all here together, we're all here on purpose, and no one is an accident, no one is worthless. But I just want to share this understanding, and we can all grow together. So. It's not pirating. What it's considered is what's the way I'm looking at it, or what's the way it's sort of like when you see all those React channels, it's called commentary. I could technically get copyright stuff, but because also part of the reason why I keep stopping the video every few minutes to actually just sit there and talk is because it makes it so I can have the video up as much as I do, because I'm commenting and adding on to it. There's I pay for these sessions. I pay for them because I like watching them, but they're not necessarily free use. What I'm doing is commenting on. That's why I'm able to have them up here and not have to because technically you're not supposed to reproduce any of these. But this is just the way I have to do it so you guys can actually see them. Because a lot of times there are transmissions that he's put out years ago that no one has really any interest in watching. They just want to see the brand new one that came out recently. So I'm doing it this way so people can still get information and get new stuff. And also I can sit there and watch it with you guys. Anyways, it was great. It was great hanging out with you guys tonight. More to come. But let's watch Sacred Circuitry as the next one that we do. I'm looking forward to more of these. Like I'm actually enjoying going back over these old ones, because a lot of times I just get them and they're on my external hard drive and I just sit there and I'll watch them occasionally, but it's not this way. I actually sit there and can talk about it with you guys. So. Anyways, have a great night. Look for more of these live streams to come. It's just going to be, I have to kind of set up my schedule here in the next few weeks because I'm starting at a new clinic that I'll be working at, and I'll get about, like I said, feel free to comment on a session that you're interested in that you've never seen, that no one's put out there. We can sit there and talk about it, and we can sit there and use it as a discussion point. Because like I said, I know there's a lot of old transmission that people don't really watch anymore and that are fairly cheap to get. And, you know, it kind of keeps it out there for everyone to be interested. So if you see one that you're interested, feel free to go to bashar.org, peruse it, and I'll probably purchase it, and then we can just sit there and talk about it and watch it together. Have a great night, everyone.